G'day from Silverstone, where Brad Pitt was back in the F1 paddock. One of the big stories today, of course, was Oliver Bearman announced as a Haas driver for 2025. The youngster's already driven his first F1 race for Ferrari in Saudi earlier this year and performed admirably. But I'll go into more detail about that announcement in a separate video. Let's go now to Brad Pitt. He and his crew are back here for some more shots at Silverstone. And you might remember last year they had that garage in pit lane. Well, they've got it back again next to Ferrari. Their cars were out on track this morning. Caught a glimpse of Brad here, along with his co-star Damson Idris, and they're filming for the whole of this weekend. And they've got a crew here of 200 people. There's a fair amount of excitement around this movie. It's released on June 25 next year. I saw Damson Idris walk in through the swipe gates dressed like this and immediately remembered that's what he was wearing last year. And of course, they are picking up shots to add to the movie. And you know, it's a bit tricky because if an actor like Brad or Damson, who's on screen a lot, say puts on a couple of kilos over that time, because remember that was a year ago, that would be very noticeable on screen. But of course that's not uncommon when you're filming a major movie that's going over this length of time. This year they've got a much bigger hospitality suite motorhome in the paddock. This is what last year's looked like, and this is this year's. On the subject of motorhomes, McLaren is back. They've fixed all of that fire damage from 2 races ago, and there is no smell of smoke in that motorhome today, and they're pretty happy to get it back up and running because this, of course, is their home race and they'll have plenty of guests in attendance. Alpine, not quite so lucky. Their motorhome was still being built mid-morning on Media Day, which is highly unusual. But by about 2 p.m, it was all sorted out. Were there any dogs in the paddock? Yes, there were 2. We had Roscoe, Lewis Hamilton's dog, with his own customised harness. And secondly, Charles Leclerc brought his dog, Leo, in. And what a gorgeous animal this is. He let it walk for a little while out near the car, but then picked it up as he came into the paddock. A little later on, I caught Charles and Carlos Sainz out the back of the Ferrari garage doing a bit of a funny stunt here. They were throwing soccer balls up in the air, trying to catch them blindfolded. That was difficult, but nowhere near as difficult as it was using a tennis ball. And there was a reasonable media throng watching the goings-on, and both of those drivers were in good spirits. And I thought at the time, what chance Lewis Hamilton doing this sort of stuff next year? Will Ferrari be able to cajole him into doing these fun stunts? I don't reckon they will. And I'll be very keen to see if that's the case next year when things kick off, well, certainly with testing in Bahrain, followed by race number 1 in Australia. Let's talk Lando Norris now. He arrived in what is probably the most stunning car I've ever seen. I'm not going to go too much into detail now. Here's a quick look at it. I'll go more into detail in my Drivers Drove video next week. And as Lando walked in, this youngster got his attention, in particular the hat, which Lando said, look, not even I have that hat, so well done to you for getting it. But yeah, he was decked out in the full Lando race suit with the number 4 on his hip. And I thought at the time he looked like perhaps a One Direction band member, very fashionable, very trendy, and looked the part of a very stylish young F1 driver, one who was very close to his 2nd win of his career last week. But instead, of course, that win went to George Russell with his 2nd win of his career. And I did have a chat with George's manager, Harry Soden, and said, did you party with him afterwards? Because Harry wasn't at that event, but he did catch up with him and said, no, there was no partying. George had to go on the sim back at the headquarters for Mercedes, and as such, there was a quiet night on Sunday. Going back to Lando's fashion, let's talk about other outfits that stood out. Lewis Hamilton, of course, looking dapper in this outfit. And have a look at the size of this Dior bag. Very Dior. Lando, by the way, was also wearing a Dior jacket. And I only knew that because the wind grabbed it at one point and displayed the label inside that jacket. Fernando Alonso was looking sharp in Boss. And here's Zhou Guanyu wearing Rick Owens. Now, Rick Owens, if you're not a fashionista, he's right out there. Some of Lewis's outfits are by Rick, and it was interesting to see Zhou taking that next step up from, say, Dior and Lululemon to something that's not quite way out there, but it's not far off it. The first driver to get to work today was Daniel Ricciardo, and I missed him coming in, but I did catch him on his scooter heading from one end of the paddock to the other, and I thought this sign out the front of the swipe gates was quite quirky, so well done, ladies, for that one. Now, you might remember going back a week and a half or so ago, there was a bit of a drama after the CEO here at Silverstone said it was Max Verstappen that was stopping ticket sales. Well, of course, that blew up and Max said he should perhaps look at his own business acumen rather than take his anger out on Max. Well, I can tell you that there are only a few hundred tickets left for this weekend, so it's almost certainly going to be a sellout. And that they put down to Lando being more competitive, George being up there, and some interesting results. I think all that chat has actually done the event the world of good, because people are now taking note, and with George and Lando having some success over the last few weeks, and the competition becoming perhaps more even, many of those disinterested fans have turned back to interested fans. On a different matter, my Instagram following has gone crazy over the last few weeks. We're at 491,000 now, and it's going up at the rate of about 2,000 a day, so I think within the next week I'll hit 500,000 followers. And I'm probably going to give away some stuff as a thank you. So if you follow me on Instagram, great, you'll be part of it. And if you don't, perhaps you want to get over there now and click that follow button. You might end up with a prize or two. This is the centre of the Silverstone paddock, and behind me here is a pop-up stand for Miraval province. Now, what is this? Well, it's a gin and it's a wine. Who owns it? Brad Pitt, and as part of his deal with F1, this has popped up here for the Silverstone event. I've just been told that Brad's also got a music studio in Miraval in France where this brand is housed. I've got a taste of the rosé. While this chilled on a hot day, perhaps in the south of France, that would be super. And get a load of this, look at these fingernails here. Carlos Sainz, favourites. Behind me is a rather large press contingent listening to Max Verstappen talk about the incident with Lando Norris last week. Lando already in the press conference said it's no big deal and they're all over it, and they touched. Max has pretty much said the same thing. The pair spoke on Monday after the event. What they've done is come up with an angle that both of them are happy with, and they're feeding that to the media, who are hoping for something explosive and controversial. But in fact, it's just pretty much business as usual. Here's another fun activity out here in the paddock. They're throwing darts, and the fellow behind me is Luke Littler, who is quite well known in the darts game. And of course, this country is a big darts country. Nico Hulkenberg and Kevin Magnussen just had a crack at it and seemed to enjoy themselves. Now, before you go, could you please like this video and hit the subscribe button if you haven't done so already. And for all of my extra stuff, have a look here. Thanks for watching and stay passionate.